She taught downward dog to stressed accountants. She served chamomile tea after every class. She spoke softly about chakras and inner peace. For 10 years, no one questioned the quiet yoga instructor in suburban Austin, until 3 armed men broke into her studio at night, and she disarmed all of them in 40 seconds without breaking a sweat. What happened next forced the FBI to reopen a file marked deceased and made an entire Special Forces unit ask one question: how is she still alive? Welcome to Hidden Legends. Before we begin this powerful story of courage, skill, and forgotten heroism, tell me in the comments where you're watching from today. She moved through the studio like water, silent, fluid, deliberate. The evening light filtered through bamboo blinds, casting soft shadows across polished hardwood floors. Lavender incense curled through the air. A Tibetan singing bowl hummed in the corner. Breathe in, hold, release. Her voice was calm, almost hypnotic. 12 students followed her lead, their bodies bending into warrior pose. She adjusted a woman's elbow with a gentle touch, smiled at a nervous teenager struggling with balance. Her name was Jessica Cole. She owned Serenity Flow Yoga Studio in the heart of suburban Austin, Texas. The neighborhood loved her. She taught morning classes for busy moms, afternoon sessions for seniors, evening flows for stressed professionals. She served organic tea after every session. She played sitar music during savasana. She wore flowing linen pants and spoke often about inner peace. No one questioned her past. No one asked where she came from. She was just Jessica, the kind yoga instructor who never raised her voice, never seemed rattled, never lost her center. The studio sat on a quiet street lined with oak trees. Next door was a coffee shop. Across the street, a bookstore. It was the kind of neighborhood where people walked their dogs at sunset and waved to strangers. Jessica had been here for 10 years. She'd opened the studio in 2015 with cash. No loans, no investors. She paid rent on time, attended local business meetings, donated to the community center. She had friends, or at least people who thought they were her friends. She went to farmers markets on Sundays. She fostered rescue dogs. She was vegetarian. She seemed perfect, almost too perfect. But that night, the mask would slip. It was 9:47 p.m. when Jessica locked the front door. The last student had left 20 minutes ago. She moved through her closing routine with the same precision she brought to every pose. Mats rolled and stacked, bolsters returned to shelves, candles extinguished, windows checked. She walked to the small office in the back. The desk was minimalist. Laptop, a single succulent, a framed photo of her with a golden retriever. She opened the cash drawer, $340 from the day's drop-ins. She always deposited it the next morning. She placed the bills in a small zippered pouch, tucked it into her canvas tote bag. That's when she heard it, the faint creak of the back door. Jessica froze. Her hand hovered over the light switch. Her breathing didn't change. Her posture didn't shift. But something inside her, something old, something buried, woke up. She turned off the office light and stepped silently into the hallway. 3 men entered through the back door. The first one was tall, hoodie pulled low, hands shoved in his pockets. The second carried a crowbar. The third held a pistol loosely at his side. They didn't see her yet. They were talking in low voices, scanning the studio. "Told you this place was easy," the one with the crowbar muttered. "She's some hippie chick. Probably keeps cash in a drawer." "Just grab it and go," the tall one said. "No cameras." No alarm. In and out. The third one, the one with the gun, laughed. "What's she gonna do? Meditate us to death?" Jessica stood in the shadows of the hallway. She could have run. She could have hidden. She could have called 911. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped into the light. "Can I help you?" All 3 men spun toward her. The one with the gun raised it instinctively. The other 2 tensed. Jessica stood perfectly still. Her hands were at her sides. Her expression was calm, almost bored. "Whoa, whoa," the tall one said, holding up a hand. "We don't want any trouble, lady. Just give us the money and we're gone." Jessica tilted her head slightly. "There's $340 in the office, first door on the left." The men exchanged glances. This was too easy. "Smart," the one with the crowbar said. "Stay right there. Don't move." 2 of them walked toward the office. The one with the gun stayed. keeping it trained on Jessica. She didn't move, didn't blink. "You're calm," he said, suspicion creeping into his voice. "Why are you so calm?" Jessica smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who'd seen worse, much worse. "Because I've been in situations like this before." The man frowned. "What?" "Turn around and leave. Right now. I won't call the police. You walk away and this never happened." He laughed. "You giving me orders?" "A suggestion." "Yeah? Or what?" Jessica's smile faded. "Or you'll regret it." It happened so fast that later, when police reviewed the security footage from the coffee shop across the street, they had to slow it down frame by frame to understand what they were seeing. The man with the gun made the first mistake. He stepped closer, trying to intimidate her. Jessica moved. Her hand shot out, fingers wrapping around the barrel of the pistol. She twisted, hard, and the gun was suddenly pointing at the ceiling. The man's wrist bent at an unnatural angle. He screamed. Before he could react, Jessica's other hand struck his throat, not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to shut him down. He collapsed, gasping. Total time, 3 seconds. The other 2 men heard the scream and came running. The one with the crowbar reached her first. He swung wildly. Jessica ducked, stepped inside his reach, and drove her elbow into his solar plexus. The air left his lungs in a single violent exhale. She swept his leg, and he went down hard, the crowbar clattering across the floor. Total time, 6 seconds. The tall one pulled a knife from his pocket. He was smarter than the others. He didn't charge. He circled, looking for an opening. Jessica watched him with the calm of someone who'd fought trained killers in the dark. "Last chance," she said quietly. He lunged. Jessica sidestepped, caught his wrist mid-thrust, and used his momentum against him. She twisted his arm behind his back, forced him to his knees, and applied pressure to a nerve cluster near his shoulder. He dropped the knife and screamed. She held him there for 3 seconds. Then she released him and stepped back. All 3 men were on the floor. None of them were seriously injured, but all of them were terrified. Jessica picked up the gun, ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber, and set both pieces on the counter. Then she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "Hi, yes, I'd like to report a break-in. 3 suspects. They're subdued." "No, I'm fine. Yes, I'll wait." She hung up and looked down at the men. "When the police get here, tell them the truth. You broke in. I defended myself. That's all." The man with the crowbar coughed. Who the hell are you?" Jessica didn't answer. She just walked to the front of the studio, unlocked the door, and waited. 2 patrol cars arrived within 6 minutes. Officers stepped inside cautiously, hands on their holsters. They found Jessica sitting cross-legged on a yoga mat, eyes closed, breathing slowly. The 3 suspects were still on the floor, hands visible, silent. "Ma'am," one officer called out. Jessica opened her eyes. "Good evening, officer." "These 3 men broke into my studio. I defended myself. The weapon is on the counter, disassembled." The officers stared at the scene, then at Jessica, then at each other. "You did this?" the younger officer asked. "Yes." "By yourself?" "Yes." The older officer walked over to the suspects. One had a swollen wrist, another was still holding his throat. The third sat against the wall, cradling his arm. "Anyone need medical?" the officer asked. They all shook their heads. They didn't want to talk. They just wanted to leave. The officers took statements. Jessica's story was simple and consistent. She was closing up. They broke in. She defended herself. She called 911. The officer took notes, but something didn't sit right. "Ma'am, no disrespect, but you took down 3 armed men by yourself?" Jessica nodded. "I used to train in self-defense, a long time ago." "What kind of self-defense?" "The effective kind." The officer didn't push. But back at the station, he ran Jessica's name through the system. Nothing. Clean record, no warrants, no priors, not even a parking ticket. But when he ran her fingerprints, just routine procedure for witnesses involved in violent incidents, the system flagged something, a federal hold. Within 20 minutes, 2 FBI agents were on their way to Austin. Special Agent Marcus Hall sat in his car outside the yoga studio at 2:17 a.m. His partner, Agent Linda Ortiz, was on the phone with Quantico. "You're sure?" Ortiz said into her phone. "The prints match?" She listened. Her face went pale. "Understood. We'll handle it." She hung up and looked at Hall. "We have a problem." "How big?" "The fingerprints belong to Captain Jessica Cole, U.S. Army Delta Force. Served 2008 to 2015. Deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. Classified operations, high-value target extractions. She was one of the first women to pass Delta selection." Hall frowned. "Okay, so she's a veteran. Why the federal hold?" Ortiz took a breath. "Because according to official records, she died in 2015, killed in action during a black op in northern Syria. There was a closed casket funeral. Her file was sealed. The Pentagon declared her KIA." Hall stared at her. "Then who the hell is in that yoga studio?" They walked inside. Jessica was still there, sitting quietly, sipping herbal tea. She looked up as they entered. "Miss Cole?" Hall said carefully. "Yes?" "I'm Special Agent Hall. This is Agent Ortiz. We need to ask you a few questions." Jessica set down her tea. "I've already given my statement." "This isn't about tonight," Ortiz said. "This is about who you are." Jessica's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. A door closing. "I'm a yoga instructor." "You were a Delta Force operator," Hall said quietly. Silence. Jessica stood slowly. "I don't know what you're talking about. Your fingerprints say otherwise." "Then your system is wrong." Ortiz stepped forward. "Captain Cole, we're not here to arrest you. We're here because your file says you're dead, and now you're not. We need to understand why." Jessica looked at them both for a long moment. Then she walked to the door and locked it. "Sit down," she said quietly. "This is going to take a while." Jessica sat across from the two agents. The studio was dark except for a single lamp in the corner. "In 2015, she began, "I was part of a mission in northern Syria. We were extracting a high-value asset, a defector with intel on ISIS leadership. The operation went bad. We were ambushed. Half my unit was killed. I was captured." Ortiz leaned forward. "The official report says you died in the firefight." "That's what they wanted people to believe," Jessica said. "I was held for 3 weeks, tortured, interrogated. They wanted names, locations. I gave them nothing." "How did you escape?" Hall asked. Jessica's jaw tightened. "I didn't. I was traded, a back-channel deal. The Pentagon didn't want anyone to know they'd negotiated with terrorists, so they declared me KIA, gave me a new identity, a discharge, and told me to disappear." "So you came here," Ortiz said, "became a yoga instructor." "I needed something quiet, something far from that world." "But you never forgot how to fight," Hall said. Jessica looked at him. "You don't forget. You just bury it, until you can't anymore." Hall and Ortiz exchanged glances. "What now?" Jessica asked. Ortiz closed her notebook. "Officially?" "Nothing. Your file stays sealed. You stay dead. The Pentagon doesn't want this story getting out." "And unofficially?" Hall stood. "You saved your own life tonight. You didn't kill anyone. You called the police. As far as we're concerned, you're just a woman who defended herself." Jessica nodded slowly. The agents walked to the door. Ortiz paused. "For what it's worth," she said, "thank you for your service." Jessica didn't respond. She just watched them leave. When the door closed, she sat alone in the dark studio. The incense had burned out. The singing bowl was silent. She thought about the life she'd built, the lies she'd lived, and she wondered how long she could keep running from the person she used to be. But for tonight, she was just Jessica, the quiet yoga instructor, the woman who taught breathing exercises and served tea. And if anyone asked, she'd smile and say she learned self-defense from YouTube. Because some legends are meant to stay hidden.